Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flawless, a music podcast. My name is Liam, and I'm here with my co-host George
Hello, Team Music.
and Grant.
Hello, music fans. It's not going to work, but let's go.
One day people will refer to us as Team Music. Tell us in
Sure.
the comments if you've been referring to us as Team Music.
Team Music. Well, I just feel like we are a team. And my mother just went, "Oh, that music rubbish," when I said I'm doing the podcast.
And I heard that. It's
Yeah.
true.
So we could be that music rubbish.
That music rubbish, yes. Let's go with that. Each episode of Flawless, a host or a guest nominates an album that they think is flawless, and we discuss how they discovered it, what they love about it, and what makes it flawless for them. We have a Facebook group. It's called Flawless Friends and Family, and it's where we discuss all things music that we love and that you love, and we post in there about upcoming episodes and what albums are nominated. And I actually did it this time, so...
Thanks, Liam.
Thanks
Did you
to-
get feedback?
I think I got like one person commenting going,
okay.
but not on this one, on the other album.
Okay.
So we'll worry about that when it
Sure.
comes to it. You can find the link to that in our show notes. And of course, we are a podcast, which means we have a Patreon. You can back us from as little as $1 a month, and you get early access to our episodes, access to our bonus episodes, and that warm, fuzzy feeling inside that you're helping us spread the flawless love. You can find us at patreon.com/flawlessamp.
And there is no cap to the amount that you can donate on a monthly basis.
That's true. If you want to register for $1 million a month, that is completely your option.
So I'm going to put it out there to Ryan Reynolds, who bought a football team.
Yeah.
You could also buy a podcast.
He could. I would absolutely...
It could be bought. I can be bought, for sure.
I can be
It's a
bought
price.
for the right amount of money. No questions
absolutely.
asked.
Yeah.
But there is a cap on, isn't there a limit on how many
Yeah,
Member-
it's
yeah.
10 million. And
10 million
we're
people.
getting
People.
people who can follow us, and we're getting very close. So get in while
Yes.
you can, Ryan. It's closing soon, and after we hit the 10 million, there's nothing I can do.
pressure's pressure?
There's nothing I can do.
That's it.
I'm sorry. So I am introducing this episode, but I am not hosting this episode. Or
Wow.
nominating this episode.
What does this mean?
Because we have a guest.
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, we
Ding,
do.
ding, ding. Hello, my name is Sabrina Lawrie.
Hi, Sabrina.
Hello,
Sabrina,
Sabrina.
welcome.
Welcome.
Are you a teenage
Welcome.
witch?
So I was when I was a
Maybe.
teenager.
Yes, you were.
I still look like a teenager? No.
Yeah, you do.
Sex.
So Sabrina's got the coolest hair. She's got like really long, dark hair, but then she's got all of these like dyed red bits in it, but it's like blood red, really cool. So like I feel like we need to take a selfie after this.
We can do that.
We should be
pop
doing
it
that.
with
We-
the
yeah, we-
For the
episode.
socials.
To the socials.
For Ryan.
And for Ryan,
Yeah.
who is going to buy the
Maybe.
podcast
If he gets in time.
if he gets to Patreon.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself,
Please do.
Sabrina?
Sure, yeah. I've been a Brisbane musician since the late 90s.
Nice.
And
That's a good era.
it was a great era. Yeah, it was my favourite to date. So I played in bands and I worked in venues. My parents ran the Indie Temple for many years, and so I was a resident
Nice.
band there in a band
Wow.
called Tongue. And I spent, that's where I cut my teeth, really. Spent 8 years playing there 3 nights a week. And then I moved on to be in a garage riot band called Little Vegas and the Fuzz Parade, which is where I crossed Liam's path. And I also just went on to be involved in the music scene, in the underground scene, the community, and started running a venue myself called the Beetle Bar with some friends of mine, Aisha, and did that for many years and built a great little scene there. And then I started putting out my own music. So under my name, Sabrina Lawrie, I put out an album, Hush the Mountain, in 2017. And I took a little bit of a hiatus after that, and now I'm back working on my second record with some singles due to come out March 2023.
Fantastic.
An album?
Yes, an
Little
album.
Soon after that.
Yes, so the singles will come out preceding the album.
Yeah.
It's how they do it these days,
That's
isn't
So,
it?
Yeah.
okay,
That's like,
yeah, sure.
one song at a time situation.
Drip feeding.
That's how they eat the
Oh,
songs
yeah.
one by
That's it,
one.
that's
yeah.
it.
Now,
But that's not what we're here for.
I have
No.
to ask,
Yeah.
like, as you are a cool kid, it's going to be released digitally, obviously, but are you going to go down the vinyl or the cassette or
Absolutely.
the mini disc?
I'm a massive fan of vinyl. I did put a vinyl out of my last album as well. And I have put a cassette out before too.
Nice.
But I'm definitely doing vinyl.
Sweet.
Awesome,
Yeah.
because I have a record collection, so,
Very cool.
like, this could go very well for both of us.
I think so.
Awesome.
Would you like to tell us where people can find out about all your goings on and what you're up to?
Yeah, you can find me on the socials. I'm on all the normal socials that are out there. And I have got a website as well, sabrinalawrie.com.
Cool. We will
And
link to that
the
in the show notes
spelling
too.
of your name will also be in the title of the episode.
Yes, and I'll link to it in the show notes, the website and the socials as well.
Perfect.
So, welcome to Flawless. Would you like to tell us what album you're nominating this
Yes,
evening, today?
I would. I'm nominating Can Dance's Spiritchaser.
Nice. Well done.
Wow.
7th studio album for Dead Can Dance.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a bit about Dead Can Dance and how you found out about them?
Well, I came across them in probably not the traditional way. I know that the many albums that they did before this 7th album were they working with 4AD Records, and so there was more of a kind of goth, different kind of a vibe around them, and then this album was more tribal and more sort of esoteric, and that's how I came across it, just through some friends of mine when I was traveling in America, and through healing, really.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's cool.
So was
Yeah.
this the first album of theirs that you'd heard?
It was.
Right. And you
Yeah.
sort of went back and watched it. Have you gone
I've
back and
listened
listened to
to all the others,
Yeah.
and this is still my favourite from them, and I will listen to this album at least once a week.
Oh,
So
Wow.
that's why I nominated it, because I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I've got to do something that I really believe
You
in.
can
Like,
remember,
why?
yeah.
Correct. No, yeah,
You
sure.
know, for me personally, yeah.
yeah. So what made this album, I guess, I mean, it was your first one, but was there anything else that made this album stand out against the other ones in terms of nominating it for Flawless?
Yes.
Yeah, well, mainly the feeling for
Mm-hmm.
me, and that, yeah, I put the album on from start to finish every time I
Yep.
listen to it, and I'm never burnt with it. I'm never done. I'm always going back. It's kind of like a reset button for me.
Oh, nice.
This record, if I'm not feeling good, or
Yeah, okay.
you know, if I want to just like get into a certain headspace where I'm kind of lifting myself, I'll
Mm-hmm.
put this record on.
So had
Yeah.
you met people in America that gave you this album or guided
Yes,
you to this?
they guided me to it. Yeah,
Right, eh?
yeah,
Even though they're from Melbourne.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
That's
isn't
right.
it like
because the band, yeah, essentially was the two founding members,
Is that Lisa and Brendan?
Lisa
Yes,
and Brendan,
Lisa
and
and
they were
Brendan.
together, I believe.
Yeah.
so,
I think they
yeah.
were married actually, and
Okay.
and they met in Australia in '81, but they relocated to London in '82,
Mm.
and so they have got, you know, their music's world music, and
Yeah.
so they have got a global appeal. So I think a lot of people, even friends recently, since you guys invited me, that I talked to about coming on, they're like, "What record did you choose?" And then I talk about this album. They didn't even know they were Australian.
Right.
So yeah.
And I have to put it out there. Brendan, immediately, name of my ex-husband. So I'm going to put it out there.
Yeah.
However,
On the back foot already.
no, because
okay.
we recently became friends again after a hiatus.
Oh, that's very good.
So
is
I
good.
looked at the name Brendan and thought that's great because the record is recorded in Brendan's studio in Ireland.
Yes.
And Brendan is the most Irish name. If he was called
Quivy
Brendan
Church.
O'Cleary,
Quivy Church, yeah.
Quivy Church in Ireland.
Yeah.
It's on the border of the Republic and Northern Ireland. And I did check from
Yeah.
for me. It's an hour, 20 minutes from Donegal, which is where my father's from. And it's an hour and a half from Dublin, which is where all of my cousins and great-grandparents and everyone are from. And it's 2.5 hours from Galway, which is where my other side of my Irish
Wow.
heritage are from, so my grandmother's side are from. And so, because I'm always curious about Ireland, and then obviously the name Brendan popped up, but ironically, I am more Irish than him, and I have an English name. But yes, so
Complex world in which we live.
yeah, but I just thought it was really cool that these people from Melbourne ended up in the middle of arse end nowhere in Ireland to open a studio in an old church and record their records there.
Unreal.
And it's not open now, but it was open at, during '96 when they were making this record. So that's like to be that passionate about your craft that you open a studio, which is a money pit.
Yeah,
essentially.
that's right. Well, what about you? Had you heard this album before?
Oh, good question. No, I hadn't, but I've heard a lot of music in this genre.
Well, I wonder when you listened to it, with the origin of it being recorded there, did you have any because for me it's very spiritual. I just wondered if you had any spiritual connection to it.
So I don't have spiritual connections to much. I'm about as spiritual as a toilet brush, which is a shame. But I recognised it as, and one of my notes actually is this would be a really good background music during a hallucinogenic trip. So if you were
Definitely.
taking
It's
like
true.
a bit
Ayahuasca.
or LSD or ketamine or anything like that, this would be a really good journey because there's no darkness.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about it, is that I don't have to take drugs, but I can kind of get in that headspace when I listen to it.
Yeah.
Nice.
So no, but I grew up listening to a lot of world music. So I used to go to festivals with my family. They're musicians too. And I used to go to festivals like WOMAD and Cambridge and Earth Spirit, and they were full of like music from around the world, and like people creating world music. And so I got to expose myself to so many different percussive instruments and like different strings instruments from all across the world as I was growing up, and that was normal to me. So when I listened to Nirvana, I was like, these instruments are boring, but they make good noise. So yes, world music is something I'm exposed to. There you go.
Very good.
But you hadn't heard of Dead Can Dance before?
No, I'd not heard this because it's not a genre I followed.
Yeah.
So I moved into folk and punk. And like that was kind of like the world music thing was my family's thing. So it was like the family, we all went to festivals together and we all listened to world music together. And I used to go to drum circles and make dream catchers and do face painting. It was an experience. They were my holidays growing up, the music festivals. But then I got to go to big ones like Glastonbury and see like big bands. But then, yeah. Well,
Cool.
So Liam, I'm
Well,
assuming.
Grant,
Oh,
have you heard of Dead Can Dance? Grant, have you heard of Dead Can Dance before?
No, and part of me desperately wanted to say, George. I had. No, I hadn't. Which is
complete
like
newbie?
Complete newbie. So I came in very blind.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Liam.
And good.
I had heard of them, and I think I've heard a few songs here and there. I knew this was the kind of style of music that they played, but I feel like I've heard a lot of stuff from Lisa Gerrard in her doing vocals for electronic music sort of space, because she does a lot of that because she's an amazing vocalist. But also then you can take that and sort of make it really epic, sweeping, but also dance music behind it. So I definitely recognise her voice, and I've seen her do stuff before.
Because she's done some cinematic stuff as well.
Yes, she does a lot of soundtracks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she does full soundtracks. She's done,
Right.
I think she's only done one or two like actual albums. Like this is just an album for no reason other than it's an album. But yeah, she's done like dozens of. She does the entire movie soundtrack by
that
herself.
makes
so.
sense.
Yes.
She's emotive.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, very emotive. Yeah, she moves me. I think that's it. That's why I love it so much, because how it makes me feel.
Yeah, right.
Just really moves me. And I'm a pretty sensitive person, so.
So we talked about, we've got Lisa Gerrard and Brendan Perry in the band at the time. And they are both under vocals, but they are under instrumentalists. So it's not. It's like they didn't have space on Wikipedia to list all the instruments they were doing. Because I'm sure at one point there's a theremin.
Yeah,
So,
I've got a theremin listed down here.
yeah, absolutely. So,
It's unbelievable the amount of instruments. I mean, because Brandon also educates with hand percussion. So he teaches hand percussion at the time, like real traditional hand percussive. He was doing like African and Cuban classes, you know, at the time. And so he had all these wacky instruments going on. There's one instrument in particular at the start of the first song, which also Indigenous Australians use. And it's just like a piece
Bull roarer.
A bull roarer, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and you just swing it around your head on a big rope.
Yeah, so it's a piece of wood on it's a piece of wood that you put on a string, and then you can swing it that way or around. But the holes on the wood make the sound because, like, if you change the hole in the wood, then it changes the sound.
that's
And
cool.
it's designed for sending music long distances. And
Communicating
long
essentially.
distances.
Yeah.
So that one appears, at the very start of the very first song, and then a few times again through the album. Because I feel it's very tribal, obviously, very percussive. So there's huge percussion all through this album.
Massive.
To the extent that even the extra people who were listed, most of them do percussion. So it was Robert Perry, who I assume is related to Brendan Perry in some way, Lance Hogan, Peter Ulrich, Ronan O'Snoday, Renaud Pion, and Klaus. And up to Ronan, they all did extra percussion on tracks 1 and 5. That's all they did. And then Renaud Pion did a Turkish clarinet, and then Klaus Vormeer did some extra engineering stuff.
Yeah.
But other than that, production, mixing, it's all mostly just the two of them using different instruments, you know, obviously not all at the same time, just layering it.
So how pissed are they that it was the one thing they couldn't put in instrumentalist is a clarinet? They're like, they had to bring someone in to play that one instrument for them.
Yeah, the Turkish clarinet. I guess the one thing they
clarinet.
couldn't teach themselves how to play.
Yeah, they're able to
didn't know
play instruments from all across the world, and they're like, bugger, we've got to
Go
bring
get this
some
guy.
guy in just to play
For
this
this.
one instrument for us for this one track because we know we've heard it, it'll be perfect, but we haven't had time to learn it yet.
Yeah. So the track he plays on is Indus, which is track 3.
Yeah.
So 9 minutes 23. It's one of the almost one of the slower ones, a bit more foreboding. Like you've got the slow, so lots of bongos and maracas all the way through it, but usually not festive, but just still a little bit up. But this one, much slower, sort of keeping that down tempo a little bit. And then it's got like a spy soundtrack. So that's where some of the cello and I assume the Turkish clarinet comes in. It's almost like that James Bond, Middle Eastern style spy stuff, which is really cool.
Yeah,
And that's
right.
the one that they sent to George Harrison and said, we've basically used Within You, Without You, which is one of his sitar tracks.
Yeah.
And he actually sent them back this is fine, like, go ahead and use it.
Yeah, well, they didn't realise that they had.
No,
I got a
it's just
quote
a
actually from
similar-
Lisa.
similar melody,
I bought a
yeah.
quote, because from the Boston
I
Globe
got
in
it straight
96.
away. It's like,
Well, she says, here's what she said, quote, we don't know whether we stole it, Within You, Without You melody or not. We probably did, but who the hell knows? It wasn't deliberate because we didn't remember the record. I'm really unfamiliar with the Beatles' work, I have to confess. Brendan knows a bit more about it, but the next minute, musicologists are saying, the first 6 notes are the same. So we had to contact George Harrison, who didn't give a damn, frankly. He was gardening at the time. He said, I
was
like
gardening.
that piece of music. He's gardening. I mean, I like
Yeah,
gardening.
and someone calls you on a landline back then.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
96.
that's right.
What
Well,
is
how'd you
bothering
get
me?
him out there?
Yeah.
Somebody wrote a song that has 6 notes similar to yours.
The
Like,
first 6
I was in
notes,
the
though.
Beatles. Every song sounds like one of ours.
yeah.
And she says-
George Harrison's literally the nicest one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, Sabrina, go on.
absolutely. And he says, I like that piece of music. It's okay. But the record company pushed it, so we had to give it a credit to Harrison on the thing, which seems really bizarre. So she
Yeah.
said.
Because of the first 6 notes. That's all it
Yeah.
takes.
That's all it takes in court. I
Yeah.
think you can have
It's
5.
amazing.
You can have 5 notes or a 5 chord progression, but you can't have more than that.
But 6
It's
is...
like there's a limit. Like if you wanted to do Mickey Mouse, it would have to have 6 points of difference. So you'd have to put like an extra little cone on his ear. 6 points of difference before it's copyright free. Which is why The Simpsons got away with it. with so many of their like itchy and scratchy and stuff like that
Okay.
was because they put enough points of difference that it didn't look like Tom and Jerry, Mickey Mouse, etc.
But yeah, if he gets that songwriting credit, that means, I mean, not that
You get
a
some
lot of
cash.
radio stations were playing 9 minutes 23 of his
Sure.
that
Don't
often.
know about
Yeah.
that.
But when they did play it, or live or covers or whatever, then he gets that little bit of that extra money.
But
Like he so
Actually-
desperately needs.
Because he probably does need
He
it.
does, yeah. That's right.
Gardening, he
Well,
needs some seeds.
he's not
some
with
fertilizer.
us anymore. We lost George Harrison a while ago.
Okay.
At
the time.
But at the time, he didn't need the money. But
No.
I would have said that Can Dance would have got some street cred from having a song credit writing affiliation to George Harrison.
Like Vanilla
on their
Ice.
album.
And
I'm not sure they would have made enough of a big deal about it to actually get anyone to
I don't think
notice.
they would have, but the fact it would have been there in
Yeah, I think their
songwriting
labels,
program-
and they
Maybe.
did get some media exposure from it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, we're talking about it.
Yeah.
This is true.
We're
back-
huge
This is massive.
in Kazakhstan.
George, I was going to
For a
kick in. The
while.
back half of Indus has hand claps,
I know.
but they're spaced really far apart and they're really soft. And for the first time, we've actually got normally all our hand claps are like fun and exciting hand claps. These are really slow and foreboding.
Yes.
And I was like, stop clapping your hands. You're freaking me out.
Yeah, I don't like those hand claps. No, I like happy cheerleader hand claps
Yes.
where I feel like I'm being cheered on to do something.
I think.
Not like some slow hand clap like you're like carrying the dead, and you're just like clapping.
And I think that's their intent, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
totally.
Lisa
Exactly what they
Gerard
were
talks
doing.
about it. She says, into, bringing the African belief. They talk about these African beliefs and old rituals and things like that a lot, but bringing you into contact with spirits from another plane. They say that the place is like a mirror of the world that we live in. And I think, they on this record in particular, they were trying to bring through real animal and nature
Yep.
sort of
Sure.
sounds and that
yeah.
and feelings like bird songs and things that suggest wood or snakes or
She's made a real
Water.
point of saying that there is never anything religious in anything they do, but that everything they do is spiritual.
yeah.
And so she did that in an interview when they were like, "Are you a religious band?" And I think it's because they picked up on some like chants that have been like Gregorian chants in the past, which would have been done by monks, and so obviously that would have had a religious context. But they're using a Gregorian chant for the musicality of it and the spiritual,
Not
spiritual.
the
Yeah,
religious
that's
side.
right.
And
Well, sound and vibration and frequency,
Yeah.
which in ancient traditions are like have healing qualities and can cause awakenings in people and crazy stuff like that.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I may or may not have taken hallucinogens, and
Unconfirmed.
so which is why so this is very much the music you would listen to on a trip of
Should
some
you choose?
description. Yeah, but
Theoretically.
you'd have to put it on, depending on the hallucinogen of your choice, you'd have to put it on repeat. Because some take half an hour and some take 12 hours. So,
True.
yes. So, like, that's literally part of my notes. So, yes.
Because one of the things they also said, we talked a lot about the percussion, but the other thing they didn't want was, so obviously, definitely now, and less so then, but probably still, you could just go, I'm going to play the drums, but make it sound like something else. You just use a computer to make it sound like some other kind of thing. But they didn't want to do that. So they said, Lisa Gerard said, we wanted live, non-sequenced human production. No, sorry, this was Perry. We wanted live, non-sequenced human percussion. We decided to set limitations to work from purely rhythmical means. I've been doing a lot of percussion workshops and sessions with friends, like you mentioned, Sabrina, and invariably we'd have up to 15 people playing percussion, which generated some great ideas.
Yeah, that's
So they just
right.
wanted to
15
get...
while they're recording this thing.
think-
Yeah,
yeah,
at
so I think-
times they did. They had like groups of people working together because that also kind of plays into the energy that they're trying to
Sure.
create. But I do know what you're talking about as well because I'm a producer too, and he did talk about wanting to get into the headspace of organic versus technology, and so he would sample some of the instruments like the bull roarer. He sampled that as well, and then played it on a synth. Then afterwards, so that sound was coming through on different notes, and then they'd play back through the sounds that they organically recorded, then digitally.
Yeah, it's good, that mix of, or analog and digital stuff, not necessarily wholly one or the other.
Because there's electric guitar in it.
Yeah. So they definitely recorded it in a
when that came in,
studio
that surprised
mode.
me, and that's an electric sound, because there was so much of it was like haunting vocals and percussion. But then having like theremins and electric guitars and stuff like that was just like, whereas in songs of the Dispossessed, that had the acoustic guitar picking opening. That was really pretty.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Really nice.
And in that, the male vocals are in English.
Yeah,
So,
one of
like,
the few times.
Yeah. And there's a piano that comes in, but the vocals are then layered and the percussion is still there. So I would say this is an album of heavy percussion. But growing up in that world of world music, the percussion of India is different to the percussion of Africa. And so there were certain times that I picked it up and I was just like, that feels like North African drumming, or that feels like Indian drumming. And it's like a very different sound and a different experience to do. So has anyone here been in a drum circle?
No.
Not in a drum circle, but I'm not embarrassed to confess that I love playing drums, and I'll jam with people in my house, or I'm not afraid to bang on something.
Yeah, nice.
Well, I don't want to admit this in front of my cool punk kid friends, but
Who are they?
actually I have done. So
Aren't we
I'll
the
be a
best
cool
Was
love
punk kid
friends?
friend.
Are we
Come
the
on.
cool pumpkin friend? That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, that doesn't
that's-
sound right.
That's fine. Well, the people I've like been in bands with or wrote themes for and stuff like that or whatever, but I've been in drum circles and it can be a really ethereal experience, because you just start, like somebody starts something, a rhythm, and other people join that rhythm, and it could be offbeat or joining, and they could be mimicking or they could be adding their own, and it carries on until you can have like 15 people all doing something that just sounds magnificent. So it would make perfect sense that if that's something they are going for in their record, they would get 15 people together to have a session like that, to experience a rhythm they've never heard before. And they jolt between rhythms in tracks as well. So they'll go between like a really straightforward rhythm into some off-kilter rhythm and then move back. But they sound like people that have traveled the world and experienced percussion with people of different cultures, which I was surprised by, because I listened to the album a few times before I read about them. So when I read about them just being a white couple from Melbourne, I was actually quite affronted by it. Like, what are you doing? How dare you take that culture away, or this culture away, or do this, that, and the other? It was really weird. It was like really affronting. But then, judging by their experience of their music, they have immersed themselves in those cultural styles of music and then transposed that into an album, and they're doing what they are doing with it.
Yeah, I think they're just very deeply feeling, and as a human being living on this planet, those ancient rituals and those ancient traditions and those ancient ways of drumming, connecting with other human beings, bringing down a connection more than this dimension that we're in. I think that's what they're on about.
Just jumping back to Song of the Dispossessed, one of the few songs that actually has like a very clear message, obviously, because then it's got the other ones are often about feel and about the big sort of creating a space, whereas this one's a bit more direct. So it's obviously about colonialism and invasions and stuff like that. So he's got the lyrics.
Woke this morning to find my people's tongues were tied. And in my dreams they were given books to poison their minds.
Leuk, buddy.
Grant's pointing pointing at me, so I'm thinking lyric buddies. So
They were given books to poison their minds.
Yeah.
Like, guys, that's a massive lyric.
Yeah.
In and of itself. I didn't get the front end of that, but I was just like, I jotted that down and
It just struck
just something pause for thought, right?
it kind of struck me like, and just put my hand up there and say I'm ex-Church of England, but it felt like a British colonial Bible pushing situation as a lyric.
yeah,
But has it changed?
no, because it's still like, you know, the
No,
history books of Australia talk about, you know, the white people came here and just came in, and it's like as soon as you try and say that actually it was an invasion, then it's suddenly, oh no, we can't talk about that. It's all. So it's the same thing. It's like all the Australian history books refer to it in the same way.
At least Triple J changed the date.
Yeah, there are little things being made all the time, which is really good.
Well, yeah, and even being comfortable enough to have the conversation.
That's it.
These days.
Yeah,
Yep.
the small steps need to be made faster for sure. Sabrina, did you have any favorite tracks you want to talk about on the album that we have? We've only covered Indecent songs so far, so any other ones that really grab you?
You know, the whole album, like I said earlier, it's a from start to finish situation for me with this album.
You reckon
So-
it was healing for you
It's very healing for me.
and continues to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in the States, I was on a bit of a trip trying to heal and recover from some pretty traumatic stuff
Yep.
here back home. And I went and saw a psychic on Sunset Strip.
In LA.
Yeah, and
Yes.
and her name. I
She
got
knew
her-
you were coming.
I
Because
got
they
up there,
always do,
I'm like,
right?
my name's Sabrina. She's like,
Of course it
my
is.
name's Sabrina too. I was like, oh my god. No, that did really happen. But so she sort of set a task for me for 7 days have this bath with different oils each day.
She
Right?
stole you the oils.
I took the oils.
I'm not trying to be a
No,
cynic. I'm trying
actually,
to get
she
the context.
gave me the oils.
There we go.
And by the end of this session, she actually wanted to give me a job too. And anyway, I couldn't. I was on tour. I
Sure.
went over there, joined a band, and we were off on tour.
And you're
right?
touring.
So yeah.
And you're sad.
And what?
You were sad.
I
'Cause
was.
you've done...
I was
Traumatized.
seeking healing.
Sure.
Yeah, and I was seeking answers from where I don't know, but in the end, it came from within myself.
Sure.
But yeah, the album and friends of mine when I first got there that I met when I first got there that put me onto it. Sort of through those days where we'd have a gig and then we'd be in sharing someone's floor and I'd be like, I've got to do this bath. I have to do it. And so I just latched onto that album and I would put that on and
Yeah.
just have the bath and get into that headspace
That-
to separate
nice.
from all the craziness that was
Yeah.
the rock and roll.
Wow.
Yeah.
was
But it
going
wasn't
on.
Sabrina didn't provide you this album. Someone else.
No,
on the
another
touring
friend of
group.
mine did. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you're bathing in the bath salt stuff, and you got the album, and
album
you're touring.
going.
It's crazy at
Yeah.
night.
But then
Healing it
I'm
in the
finding
day.
moments to be introspective
Yeah.
and kind of take stock
Sure.
with it. Yeah.
Deep
Which
breaths,
you need to
reflecting.
do. So you don't get
It was meditative.
burnout.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It
Sure.
was the craziest time.
And how long
yeah.
was the tour for?
It was about 2 months. I was in the States for 3 months
Yes.
all up, but yeah, we were off and around the place from LA, across the desert to South by Southwest in Austin and then back again.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we did a bunch of shows all, into the desert and it was just go, go, go. So, yeah.
Had you done something like it previously? Or was-
Not to that extent, no. And
Sure.
I mean, I didn't intend on doing that when I went there either. A friend of mine, Sasha Vallely, who had spent time in Brisbane actually, she's played some shows out here. When I got there, she's saying, we're going to the studio tomorrow. She's like, because I'd already sung some backing vocals
Yeah.
on her stuff when she'd been out here, she's like, would you come in? And do some backup. Well, of course. And she's like, all right, well, we're going to rehearsal tonight. This is the day I landed. I'm like,
Off you go.
okay, all right. And that's how.
More yeses
and then
than
it just
nos.
went off after
That's
that.
it.
I was just like, she's like, oh, you're great. That's it. You're in the band. Next day we're in the studio and I record. And then she's like, we've got all these shows booked. Can you come?
Sure. Sure. Well done.
But I was planning to get down to South America on a spiritual journey. So that's why I suppose I was still, trying to do both
Connect
at
with the-
once.
So,
Yeah.
so
Well,
do you still have
in-
intentions, to go to South America
I
for the
do.
spiritual?
Yes. Yeah.
That would be awesome.
At the right time, I will.
But then you'll take hallucinogens because they'll give you peyote, and you're gonna have the best time. Because some really good books have been written on peyote. Speaking of a different part of the world, track 7 is Song of the Nile. So percussion and chanting. For what I really liked about this, and saying, we know I like hand claps and I like 1, 2, 3s and harmonicas. I really like bells.
Oh, cool.
So, in Song of the Nile, there's the bells or chimes of some description. I don't know which instrument from the world they chose, but they put that in a melody. Then the male vocals are in, and the female harmonies come in layers. And again, there's percussion and chanting. That's like our thing. But I really enjoyed the lightness of the bells in the penultimate track of the album, bearing in mind it's 8 minutes long.
Yeah, yeah, it's eight tracks that are all quite long. The other thing, Song of the Nile is like all the other songs. There's lots of stuff going on for most. So like their pizzas will come in and go out, but for the big chunks of the songs, there's lots of stuff, lots of instruments going on. Song of the Nile is a bit emptier. It's like I think it's
meandering.
Yeah,
I wrote down.
I think it's playing with that space, like it's creating those empty spaces deliberately. Like it wants you to
with
sort
intent.
of use your imagination and fill that space yourself. But I think
And you let yourself kind of fall into a trance. I
yeah,
think that's
it's kind of like
what they're
a
trying to do.
haunting openness. Just like the other ones, like there's lots of stuff you can always be picking pieces out. Whereas this one was a bit more open, I think, which is really cool.
But Liam, were
Yes.
there any tracks that you were
I also
of?
like the Snake in the Moon, the Snake in the Moon right before that, which I've got
Yeah.
marked as a single. I'm not sure like the value of these kind of band
Double
having a
tick.
single. Like
Yeah.
so still 6 minutes. Didn't
Did that
get a
have
lot
a-
of radio play. I
Did
assume.
it have a sitar in it?
I wrote down sitar.
It just
It
sounded
must
like...
have.
I didn't confirm, but
No,
I wrote
I
down
put question mark.
guitar.
And I put
Great.
theremin in question mark.
Yeah, so that one I thought it might have had a theremin in it. They had the bull roarer again to
You and
open,
the
which is
theremin.
really cool.
It's like we need this.
I love the theremin.
Everyone they like to say the
I
word.
do know
Sabrina,
theremin,
they
yeah.
love to
But-
say the word.
Theremin.
They're like,
Theremin. You know, there's a
It's
Brisbane
overrated.
musician called Steve Palmer. He used to play the theremin
Okay.
in an
I
instrumental
didn't know.
surf band called Los Huevos.
Oh, he played a theremin, you say?
Yes,
Was
he
it?
played a theremin live on stage.
Oh, a theremin. Okay,
Nice.
good.
Theremin,
Well,
theremin.
Bill Bailey, the comedian, plays the theremin with his bald head. And that is very funny.
That is theremin.
Whilst
yeah,
he
so-
has things on a loop.
It's got a soft opening, and then like there's these little funky guitar picks that come in, sort of
Yeah,
thing, which is
great.
quite different to other stuff in the album
Talking
as well.
to each other.
But they use like maracas and percussion to emulate like the slithering of a snake, and then the rattle of like
Yeah.
the rattle of a rattlesnake, which I think is really cool.
But Lisa's voice is much deeper. Her vocals are much like lower register when she's in this song than she is in the others. Like a lot of the times, like she's very high pitched, like a banshee, and yet here she's got this deeper vocal of like a siren, and it was just like she goes from different ethereal beings depending on what song she's in, because he is chanting and doing vocals, and then her deep vocals. But for this one, the whole outro is percussion. It's just percussion, and that's all. Like they make all of the notes and sounds that you need for the outro with percussion. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Makes me want to dance.
Yeah,
It's also something I get from this record
yeah,
at home alone.
yeah.
You're like
Just
doing
like
the
really like uninhibited dance. You
cleaning
know?
the floors and
Just-
having a
yeah,
wiggle.
when you're cleaning, yeah, because you want. A friend of mine always gave me a great hint when you want to clean your house and you just got no motivation. She's like 5 songs. She's like, put 5 songs on, and by the end of those 5 songs, you'll clean the house.
Nice.
No,
But
pick the
definitely,
right 5
this one
songs,
helps
yeah.
with that too.
I listen to really dirty punk, really angry political dirty punk that makes me want to fuck the system. And then I'm just like with the floors, I'm just like, yeah, fuck you, floors.
Piss off dust. Yeah.
Yeah, you're the worst.
Ah, you'll pay. You'll pay for
Loading
this.
the dishwasher sucks. And yeah,
The good thing about this one, as opposed to short, dirty punk songs, is that these are all nice and long, so you can sort of spend your time getting into that dance. Whereas
Correct.
by the time you're angry at the floor, it's like the song's over.
It's 2
damn
minutes
it.
20.
yeah, I know.
It's done.
Like, I have a 10-hour playlist for a 2-bed apartment. But there you go. Like I'm not good at cleaning.
Grant, any other songs? You mentioned Double Tick just a moment ago. Anything else that got your
Song
double
of
tick?
Stars, of course.
Song of
Is
Stars,
that a
yeah.
didgeridoo?
It is it?
That's
I
up there
assume
for
it's a
me.
didgeridoo. It felt
Yeah,
like it to
it's
me.
didgeridoo.
Yeah. Just love that guitarist singing birds. What a combo. And 10 minutes 13. I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
nice
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah, it is a big one.
So
And there
is that is English poetry?
That's Brendan doing poetry in that one, yep.
Yeah, but then is that African
It's
thing?
Haitian French Creole.
Haitian French Creole.
which was
thing.
my next guess.
Yeah.
But there's also guitar picking and
Yep.
sliding.
And so it starts out just plucking notes, and then it lifts up into the chords of, I think, similar notes, like the same notes. I'm not good enough to know which
Okay.
notes go to chords, but yeah, it felt like just a natural progression up in through that.
Yeah, definitely. It was really nice. So yeah, and also I think the title "Song of the Stars" might be the prettiest title I've ever heard of a track ever. I love
very
it.
cool.
Yeah, I love it.
Like it makes
Almost
you
like
feel
Dancing in the Moonlight, but that
not quite, but I feel
maybe a part. Just
But maybe the song didn't follow the title on that one. But yeah, 10 minutes 13, with both of them joining in vocals.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yourself, George. Any other
Yeah, any other
big ones you want to
hit?
call out?
so we haven't spoken about, I'm going to throw this, Divorcelum,
Mm-hmm. Divorcem.
the final track.
Yep.
So this one is only 6 minutes 14.
Yeah.
Not the shortest.
No.
That's dedicated alto, but we'll get to that in a sec. But there seems to be this long one note underlining the whole thing that sounds like a harmonium or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's a note that just sits there beneath all 6 minutes of the track. But there is soft guitar, this sort of whistling noise, and there are strings. So thought Granty might like that. We like a bit of string.
I do like some strings.
So I heard
I've
string-
played in the past. Yes.
You have played because you are good like that. Again, unsure of language. So
So it's okay that we don't know how to pronounce the title of the song because it's a word that Jared made up.
They often, a lot of their lyrics are just
Yeah, I think
are
it's
not
their own
real
language.
languages.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just use phonetics that sort of just carry the energy of what they're trying to transmit.
Yeah.
well, I'm literally writing a young adult fantasy novel right now.
Oh.
And I've had to invent
Of course you are.
realms and characters, and like each realm's character has to have a different style of name, so it's very clear that someone's an elf versus a unicorn. And yeah, so I'm writing this book, and I've had to invent words that mean somebody that is half one magical being, half another magical being, that doesn't come off as derogatory. Do you know how hard
To
that is?
whom?
To the audience.
Right.
If they
So,
choose to get
if
that
he's,
offended.
if he's inventing words and inventing lyrics for the album,
So
then
it was mostly Lisa. So this one was the whole thing. This last one was on Lisa. So the album was
Woman and guitar.
Yeah. So the album was a tribute to her brother Mark, who passed away. So the whole album was tributed to him. And then this
The
song,
album and that
this song in
that song.
particular
Yeah.
is Divorcem, as we're possibly mispronouncing it, is called A Lullaby for the Sleeping Spirit. That's what she said it means. So this is for him, a lullaby for him as he passes on and his spirit. So that's where, guitar, and I thought it was guitar and her voice. Once again, very different to the rest of the album, bit stripped back, but just
See, that's something I did not know,
was
and
gonna
maybe
ask,
that's
is
why
it Sabrina?
I'm
There we
like
go.
drawn to it because
Hey.
in my life I have had a lot of people around me that I've been there at the end with and that sort of thing. So
Really?
yeah, that's curious.
More
Very
than a
curious.
handful, more than like one.
more than should be expected.
More
Or
than one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go
And it
more
just,
than one.
in fact, to the point where my best friend just this week said to me, because I was like, maybe you should be like a death doula or something like that,
Yeah.
wow,
What?
Doula.
Because they do
what's
that,
Doula,
yeah.
like a
Doula.
spiritual guide
Doula
during a thing. Usually they have during birth.
Yeah, or someone that people have a mother
Okay.
that, you know, guides them through the
That's-
process.
How do you
end.
feel? And what was your thought about that one?
Yeah, I do feel attracted to potentially exploring that. Yeah.
Wow.
You could bring lightning on it where there is dark.
Because it is a light experience for the person. It's very personal, but I think it's really the people
Hugely.
around, the other people around, that kind of change the energy of what's happening for the person that's actually going through the experience. I don't know. But it's interesting that you brought that up because, I didn't realise that.
That's so.
Yeah.
It was
And
a lullaby.
and the reasons for you being attracted to it in the first place is a part of healing, and this last track is about that.
Is
with
about
her
that
brother.
for her brother, yeah. So
Yeah,
a,
I know that.
a lullaby
Very
for the sleeping
interesting, yeah.
spirit.
And we go
A
levels and
lullaby-
levels.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Right. Oh, I love
So-
it. Love it, Sabrina. We're moving here, guys. We are moving.
I'm putting it out
Jeez.
there to Lisa and Brendan that I'm going to use the word divorceland in my fantasy novel, where it is
Maybe.
a lullaby. So
Maybe
going-
ask them first.
yeah.
Well, I was going to
that's
ask, but
the
if Ryan
nice-
Reynolds buys the whole podcast now, and then he says he's got a problem with you in the divorce and thing, then what do we do?
Sorry, Ryan. Kick him to
Sorry.
the curb. Sorry,
Soz,
Ryan.
not soz.
Yeah.
Is that what the
Yeah.
new kids would
Yeah.
say?
We're
Sorry,
looking, we're
Ryan.
looking for a silent partner, Ryan. Not someone to
Well,
come in and govern the
again.
content.
So maybe that's a little.
Yeah,
silence.
that's true.
We are looking at the clock. Any final thoughts before we go into a final pitch?
Amazing talk.
Plucky choice, shortest song, 1 minute 9,
Yeah.
just percussion.
Yeah.
Done. And that's Delisate Alto.
Does anyone know what dedicace alto means?
Yes, I did actually look that
I could
up.
only find the
Did
definition
you-
for dedicace. I couldn't find anything for alto.
Alto means spirit of the drums.
Okay.
Yes.
No.
Dedicace, I read, means dedication, but feminine in the French.
Oh, there you go.
It's because French have feminine and masculine
Masculine,
versions
yeah.
of words.
Feminine dedication to the spirit of the drums. There we have it.
That's a
Sounds good.
really good name.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe it was just Lisa doing her thing the whole time, like just 1 minute 14 of Lisa playing drums.
So
There was one thing I wanted to say.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
If you guys had invited me to inspect this album a little more closely, I wouldn't have realised with the church, with Quivy Church.
Yes.
Brendan was talking about in the early days when he set it up that they had a bat problem in there, and so all the instruments, like the bats, would come back in the daytime, and then they'd get bat poo on them, and
Sure.
it was ruining instruments and stuff. And so they was trying to figure out ways to get rid of these bats, and eventually one night they left Led Zeppelin playing really loudly. And that he said the bats went away after that. So I thought that's really cool. Go Led Zeppelin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which album?
don't know.
3, 4.
To the one that I
5?
proposed is
I don't
flawless,
know.
that Liam was wrong on again.
Ah. But yeah, I thought
Wow.
Cool.
That's
That is
really
cool.
cool.
All right.
And they
think-
never returned.
I think
No,
we
never
covered the
returned.
album, right?
Yeah, Sabrina, did you want to give us your final pitch for why Dead
Or
Can
is it-
Dance is flawless?
Or anything more in your notes, which, guys, I'm not sure I've seen better typed notes or more pages in my life. It's amazing. It's great. Thank you. You really care. We can see that.
Well, I do really care, and yeah, I'm just grateful you guys invited me to look at it. But no, I think we've covered everything I had in my notes and more.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks to you
Wow.
Good.
guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Your final pitch for why you think Spirit Chaser is flawless.
I think Spirit Chaser is flawless because, in my personal opinion, whenever I put it on, I have to listen to it from start to finish every time.
Wow.
Nice.
Done.
Perfect.
So,
Sold.
so you don't pick out, ever just go, do you know what? I really need to listen to a song of the Dispossessed right now.
No.
You're like, no.
I put the whole thing on.
You have
And
to
I think,
put Narika on and go,
and it's because it's always at times when I'm in my own headspace or I'm on my own, because I'm a mother as well, and you know I work with lots of people, and so I suppose, and I used to live far out of town too, so it'd be also driving. So yeah, I'd really just I grab it when I have that time to be in my own headspace.
Nice.
Yeah.
cool.
George,
Hello.
final thoughts and a thumbs up or a thumbs down for Dead Can Dance.
Okay, so final thoughts. I was thrown back in time listening to this album because it's not a genre I've listened to since I was about 14, and I stopped going to festivals with my parents. Even though my mother would play world music at home, I'd kind of ignore it. So I was thrown in at the deep end with Spiritchaser because it crosses many realms, and it was quite a surprise to find out that they're a duo from Melbourne. So I was incredibly impressed by the fact that they are instrumentalists, plural, and they have obviously immersed themselves in the music of different cultures and translated that over to the music they create. And I think it's really cool. And they have quite a big following as well. And they do like world tours, and they have like people that are really into what they are doing. So it's not a genre I follow. And so I was listening to it, and I was thinking like, well, this is a bit of an Indian bit, this feels like an African bit, this feels like a whatever, an Irish bit. But it's actually, I think, the album didn't flow for me the way I hoped it would. So I was hoping, like when I first started listening to Nairika at the beginning, it's percussion heavy and female vocals, and like it felt very African with chanting. I was expecting this soundscape that would take me on a journey, knowing that it's an hour long, or nearly an hour long. But I got jolted by, in Song of the Stars, when there was male poetry that sounded almost Gaelic. It took me away from the spirituality of like Africa. And then it took me into the spirituality of India, and I felt like I was being moved around the continents too much. And so for me it wasn't fluid enough as an album. I thought they're incredible like masterpieces on their own, and I was really grateful that you brought it, but I couldn't call it a flawless record because unlike Sabrina, I couldn't listen to it end to end. I would actually pick out individual tracks and play them in their own right and repeat. And that's my experience of it. So it's not a flawless, but it's a really interesting album.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, George. Grant, over to you. Final thoughts and a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Thank you, Liam. I thoroughly enjoyed this album because it's world. What I wrote down here from Wikipedia or whatever. World music, world beat, neoclassical, dark wave. I never heard of that part of it, but sure. Okay, let's go with that. And you know the drums, and there's a lot of tribal stuff that was absolutely awesome. I got double ticks on Songs of the Stars, and I got double ticks on the Snake and the Moon. Track number 5. Everything else is 5 minutes plus, right? And then for some whatever reason, and I've got an Estidio Auto, I have Y in capital letters, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Sorry, question mark for the first 3, then an exclamation mark. And if only for that, I don't know why. I don't feel it needed it. Desperately don't. I enjoyed everything else of it, but I'm going to say no for that. Only because I didn't feel that it needed it, and that was the only reason I would pull back. I didn't think it's way outside my wheelhouse, right?
I thought it was going to be.
Well, I mean, it's definitely
like
the first world music album we've covered on the podcast. Like, various, obviously, George has got a bit of history with that, but definitely, I think any of us listen to regular, any kind of.
And also, diehard fans, most diehard fans are not huge fans of this album.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Which is interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which album do they prefer?
Well, I don't know actually.
But not this one specifically.
Not this one specifically.
Because it was. I wrote down here. You might have these notes as well. 14 years. It was 16 years from the previous one, and then 14 years to the next one.
They had a hiatus.
No,
On the bookended. This is like in the middle.
I don't think it was 16 years to this one.
It was the 7th. In a row
Seventh
of
album,
records.
yes.
Yeah, but I don't think it was 16 years since their 6th album.
I had a 16-year hiatus, but that could have been.
They
Okay,
did-
they
next
definitely
one.
went on a huge hiatus after this album,
Okay,
but I don't know about. I thought before
Before.
they've been doing it every couple of
Okay.
years, but I'm not sure.
that's fine. I thought it was super cool, Sabrina. Thank you for bringing it. And if it wasn't for number 5 at a minute 14, does it need to be there? I would have said, sure, done.
Gotcha.
Okay. Liam.
Hello. Yeah, so like everybody else, I was. This is definitely outside my wheelhouse, to the extent that I feel weird. Even the small amount of judging that we do on music on this
Sure.
podcast, which is just the outro, I didn't feel comfortable saying whether this is good or bad world music. Like how, like I have no like.
Well, that's kind
What a
of
There
good
are-
point.
That's kind of cool. Yeah.
There are other
Hey?
genres that I have almost no connection to, but even I know, like, so say hip hop is probably one because I'm a white guy. I'm obviously not a huge connection to it, but I can tell when it's good and I can tell when it's bad. This, I have no clue if this is good or bad. Like, I feel like it's probably good because these two feel like amazing people who, like George said, have immersed themselves in cultures that aren't their own and have found a way to sort of bridge that connection. So I was having trouble deciding how I was even going to judge it. The only thing I did come to a conclusion at the end was that it felt like when they were at their best was when there was like lots of stuff going on, lots of instruments, lots of percussion. So on Narika, Song of the Stars, on a lot of the songs they do that. But then at the end, Song of the Nile was very empty and sparse, and then Divorcem was even sparser again. And I felt like ending the album on two things which weren't as strong as the stuff that had come beforehand. I thought I would have liked to go out on not big and up, like because they don't make happy music, but just something that really played a bit more to their strength. So I really loved listening to it, and thank you very much for nominating it. But I felt like I couldn't give it flawless. Just that the ending didn't really nail it for me, even though the two songs individually are still really great songs.
Thanks, Sabrina.
Yeah,
You're
thanks,
welcome.
Sabrina.
Thank
very
you.
much.
No, it's great.
Cool, that's been a nice long chat.
Yeah.
And we want to thank everyone for listening. We have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we are Flawless AMP on all of those. So you can join the conversation, share or like our posts, or give us a rating. Every little bit helps us find more music lovers like you. As mentioned, we also have a Patreon at patreon.com/flawlessamp. If you'd like to back us, please check that out. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.